smart entrepreneur will be able to work with others. Listen to their ideas and not necessarily always go with them, but being open and flexible, and all of a sudden, it's amazing how things open up.
Joe Farrell grew up on the mean streets of Roxbury in Boston. At the age of 12, his family's move to the coast would set Joe's destiny in motion.
Moved near the water in Quincy. And at 12, it was a very good age, a formative age. And I got into the ocean, and it was just the whole lit me up with the ocean was just awesome. There was a fellow, Walter Hurley, had the boat rental, and he would hire us young kids. He was a real formative influence on me. He was a real straight shooter, honest guy, hardworking guy, and taught me a lot. That's kind of really what set me on the right track.
Joe went on to join the Coast Guard and fulfill his dream of becoming a diver. The dream, however, hadn't included diving in the Arctic.
I became a diver on an icebreaker. Ridiculous, 26-degree water temperature, 300 pounds of explosive.
After 2 tours in the Arctic, Joe headed for a warmer climate and the opportunity to serve his country in challenging times.
I volunteered, went to Vietnam. So I went to explosive school and ended up going to Vietnam as an explosive advisor. So I was in Saigon, Quy Nhon. I was 20. I was the youngest explosive advisor in Vietnam. Came back and I promised myself I'd rather live under a bridge someplace warm than in a house someplace cold.
Joe Farrell ended up in South Florida, living on a sailboat. But when he saw an advertisement for a diver in the Bahamas, Joe was all in.
I hitchhiked up to Palm Beach for an interview and they hired me on the spot. So I spent 4 years jumping out of helicopters over in Andros Island, recovering torpedoes.
Joe would then follow the jobs, as long as they involved the ocean or boats. During his time with the Coast Guard, he'd gained some experience as a ship's engineer. Soon, he'd be able to put that to use.
So I became the chief engineer on the Dutch salvage tug in Europe. It was the largest salvage tug in the world when it was built in 1958. And this is about 1975. After a couple of years, they only owned the one boat. They wanted to sell the boat.
Joe had his eye on buying that boat, so he worked a few jobs with them until he'd earned enough to buy the salvage tug. And by 1980, Joe Farrell was in business.
Came up with the name Resolve when I resolved what I wanted to do, because I already had a number of occupations. I knew basically if you worked hard, if you were willing to take the risk and things worked out, you can do all right in life. So that's how I started, taking chances.
Taking chances seemed to come naturally for Joe, and some brought more risk than he'd like to admit.
Some of the stuff is quite embarrassing, what's happened over the years. Locked in an engine room, running out of air, no one knows you're in there. And we've been at sea where our tugs have sunk and we've been on them. I've been lost at sea. It just happens and things all work out and you don't panic.
Nor did Joe panic when the business was struggling. Here too, he kicked into survival mode, doing whatever was required to prevail.
It was a real battle. I'd do anything. I had a couple of man crew. I was the chief engineer and the captain now. A friend of mine gave me a sextant. And I got some books how to use a sextant, and really, it was a real. Sometimes I have the tugboat tied to the dock, a little office in Puerto Rico, and I'd be out there selling Christmas trees to pay the crew salary on the street outside.
By the 90s, Joe Farrell had established himself and his team as one of the most reliable salvage companies in the world. Of course, he could not have done this without the help from his crew.
I always looked for the right people, treated everyone as best I could. It's nice, our business, because we're actually helping a lot of people, and we're doing good all the way around. But the key's been the right guys. I've had one fella has been with me like 30 plus years now, Frankie. He just raised a submarine in India there. We just finished that the other day.
With this dedicated team, Joe and Resolve tackled some of the most challenging and interesting jobs, including the 1996 ValueJet crash.
That was declared by the NTSB and the FAA as the toughest aircraft recovery in the history of aviation. We recovered a ship that was in Barranquilla, Colombia, that had their drugs in it. We had 6 guys, automatic weapons, protecting us from the military, who I didn't trust. So I made an agreement with them. I'd do the job only if they allowed me to use 2 of my guys to watch their 6.
Joe Farrell and Resolve Marine continued taking the challenging jobs, but remained a lean organization. Joe had the guts, the vision, and the drive to keep Resolve going strong, but he knew with the right operations guy, the sky was the limit. He found that guy in 2005 when his friend and former client joined the Resolve team.
I joined as a COO, as a Chief Operating Officer. When I came here in 2005, we had a very small office. And I was coming from an organization with 15,000 people all over the world, and I looked around and there were 6, 7 people, and I said, what am I doing here?
But it didn't take Virat long to see the potential. Resolve Marine has become not only a world leader in challenging salvage operations, they've become a highly diversified maritime organization that specializes in maritime training, including fire response training, along with having the most sophisticated bridge and engine room simulators to be found anywhere in the world.
I love the training stuff. We can stop things from happening. We can stop needless accidents.
Today, Resolve Marine has almost 280 full-time employees, a large fleet of ships and crane barges, and a presence all over the world.
We're now going in all the directions that our clients are asking us. In the last 8 or 7, 10 years even, it's just been stellar. Now we're doing the biggest jobs on the planet. We got a big operation in Dutch Harbor in Alaska. We have up there, we rescue the guys up there with the deadliest catch. We ended up towing the Costa Concordia. Every time you think you've done the most interesting job, another one comes up just as unique. During BP, I had probably 800 guys working on 120 vessels in 5 states. So since then, I've opened up in China. Now we've got like 102 ports covered in China for oil spill. We're just opening up in Gibraltar now. We're down, you name it, we're on all the major continents now.
Joe Farrell is a man with a zealous passion for his work, a man lucky enough to have found his calling at the age of 12 and to build that into an amazing international success. On top of all that, he's blessed with a loyal wife and 3 children who now work at Resolve, ready to carry on the legacy. Joe never forgets to count all those blessings.
I go to church 7 days a week when I'm in the United States. I truly do. And I've watched in my life and my career how it's helped.
Joe Farrell has quite a few secrets to his success. A man unafraid of risk, who recognizes and appreciates the talent around him. A man with a daring vision that enabled him to grow an empire from a single salvage tug. The 2015 International Golden Compass Award honoree, Joseph E. Farrell, Jr.